So it's been a little while since I've done two things. One, uploaded a video. It's been a little over a week. And two, it's been even longer since I've done one of those little voiceover type deals, which I know can be kind of boring. When I look at the videos that I have, the ones, of course, that have the most traction or the most views are the ones where, yeah, I'm interacting with the camera, you see my face, whatever. So I figured I'd actually combine both of those. So I'm going to upload this video hopefully today. And also do one of my little voiceovers because yes, I feel like we're constantly inundated with, open box this, review that, first impressions, long-term reviews, products. Yeah. And this is not technically different from that because I'm still talking about a particular product. However, I am talking about a particular product from the standpoint of an article that I will post a link to that in the description, talking mainly about the Google Pixel 7. And actually, I'd say the Google Pixel 7 and Pixel 6 because the article was really talking about the Tensor chip that's inside the two of them. So to not talk too much prior to you actually potentially hearing my voice without seeing my face for the rest of the video, the phone, the chip in the phone is not the most powerful one, and Google is perfectly fine with that. And I feel we always get caught up in specs. We want the most powerful thing. And if Google is able to recognize that that's not the most important thing when it comes to the device that they're designing, then they are going to make what they want to make. And since it's a quasi custom chip that's inside of the phone, they're able to do that. Kind of like what Apple does when it comes to their A series and their M series chips. They know what the software is going to do. So therefore, they make the hardware to coincide with the software. Most manufacturers are just putting some type of Qualcomm chip in their smartphone, or they're putting an AMD or Intel chip in their computers and then using a operating system from yet another company. But if you're able to tightly package all of that together, you'll get the optimal experience, hopefully. And what Google is saying in the article that I'll be talking about momentarily is that you don't need the most powerful chip to get the best experience. And Google is perfectly okay with that. So without further ado, if you want to stick around and hear my voice, I'll start the next part of this video. So I thought this one was pretty interesting. I know this is a little different from what I've been doing recently because I enjoy making videos and I enjoy trying out new products, but sometimes it's nice just to talk about things that are happening in the news. And when I say news, I really mean just tech news. And if you're looking on the screen right now, you see that I'm a little bit late. I've been meaning to talk about this for a while. It looks like this was posted back at the end of October. We are now mid-November, but the premise still stands that according to this article, Google says it's very comfortable with the Tensor not winning benchmarks. And I think that's an extremely important thing for a company to publicly acknowledge. I know that many companies and consumers both are focused on power, performance. But in Google's case, I feel like they're trying to prioritize other things instead of just saying we have the most powerful phone on the market. Now, before I scroll down a little bit, and I'm not going to read the whole article to you, I'll include the link in the description in the event that you're interested in it. But it makes me think of the main competing companies. For instance, Apple, Qualcomm, Samsung, and there's probably some other ones, but I feel like those are the heavy hitters. Apple because they make the phones, and then also they have their own silicon. Qualcomm because they make the silicon, and Samsung, of course, uses a lot of their parts. And what comes to mind right now, more than anything, are the products that Apple most recently released, and I'll say released within the last year or so. Mainly talking about the M series products. So we have the M1 and the M2, the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, and the M1 Ultra. And then also there's the M2, and we are waiting for the more pro level versions of the M2 to be released. Those are the computers and the iPads, and of course in the phones, you have the A series chips. So I think we're up to the A16 Bionic, which I believe is found in the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. But if you were to watch any Apple keynotes, they definitely talk about how powerful their chips are and how much more powerful they are than the competition, which in most cases would be Qualcomm. And that's true. That is true. The A16, according to Apple's graphs, and I would believe it, is, generations ahead of the Snapdragon Gen 1 Plus or Plus Gen 1, whatever the most recent chip is. I forget the name of it. But yeah, and that's perfectly fine. I would understand. But when we look at, okay, we're talking about smartphone performance, what are people doing on their phones that require such performance? Now, I will say, if you can build it, there's no reason not to build it, but don't make that, I guess, the staple of, our phones are so much better because they're so much more powerful. Now, I will say that with power should come efficiency. And fortunately, Apple also markets that their chips are efficient. So that is a good thing. And I cannot, I guess, have a fair conversation without acknowledging the fact that they aren't just throwing pure power and performance at it. They say, hey, we are powerful, yet extremely efficient chips. And that is true. I have several Apple products right now in my possession, 2 MacBooks, one MacBook Air and one 14-inch MacBook Pro. And I will say, one thing I specifically or especially enjoy about the MacBook Air is the fact that it's fanless. And the reason that it can be fanless is because the chip inside of it is so efficient and doesn't draw so much power that it doesn't need to be actively cooled. And I thoroughly enjoy that. And I know I'm trying to, I guess, point out the fact that Google is saying it's okay not to be super powerful, but I'm also saying, well, Apple is powerful and efficient, which is good. But as long as Google is recognizing that their goal isn't to make the most powerful chip in the world or the most powerful chip in the smartphone, we as consumers should also recognize that as well. That it's not all about that. And if we were to go through the article, we would see that Google was explicitly saying they have other directives. AI, artificial intelligence, is definitely something that they are focusing on, and just the sheer feature set of their devices. And I know this is about the Google Tensor chip, and I talked about Apple's products, but even when we talk about laptops made by other manufacturers, Intel and AMD would be what we talk about if we're talking about those. And Qualcomm has recently put their hat in the ring too, with an ARM chip for a Windows machine or several Windows machines. But if you were to watch reviewers, you would definitely see that for the most part, all they talk about are, well, not all they talk about, but they do put a decent amount of emphasis on, we ran these benchmarks and this is what we got. And of course, the point of the benchmark is to show usually what is, if you were maxing out this machine, all the cores in this machine, what type of performance should you expect? And then you compare the performance of this year's chip to last year's chip or to the competitor's chip. And it's important for us, again, as consumers to realize, well, for the majority of the time that we're using whatever machine that we're using, whether it's a phone, a laptop, a tablet, a desktop, whatever, frequently we are not maxing out all the cores. And that really shouldn't be the focus on what we are looking for when we are purchasing something new. And to bring it back to this article, Google is explicitly saying, yes, we are very comfortable with Tensor not winning benchmarks because that's not what it's about. And if we were to just look right down here, the quote essentially is a Googler says the company prefers to test real world workloads on its Pixel phones rather than synthetic benchmarks. And I don't think I could have said it any better, that we have these devices and how am I going to use it compared to how is my neighbor or my colleague or my friend going to use it. That's what's most important. And yes, if I need a true workhorse of a machine, then they exist and I can buy one of those. But if I need something like a Pixel 7 to be able to make phone calls, receive text messages, send them, browse the web, use the Google Assistant, and do whatever other things that Google says the phone can do, if Google knows what it wants to accomplish and therefore can, I guess, guide hardware production to suit its needs, there's no reason to throw the most powerful chip at it. And it took me a little while to to understand what TLDR means, but too long didn't read. So here we are. The first little bullet right there is essentially the title of the article. But the second one is a supporting bullet of the director said Google benchmarks software workloads that will actually run on the Pixel phone. So yes, they know what software they're going to put on it. So they custom or semi-custom design silicon to adequately support the software that's going to be running on these machines. And Google's Pixel 6 and Pixel 7 phones are powered by semi-custom tensor processors, but these SoCs don't really take the fight to Apple, Qualcomm, and other chip makers when it comes to most benchmarks, and they're okay with it. And yeah, I will tell you that the constant theme of the article, as it should be, is yes, we make phones. We finally decided to put our own chip in it, and we custom or semi-custom design this chip to do what we want it to do. If we wanted to just go out and get a Snapdragon Plus Gen 1 or Gen Plus, whatever it's called, and just throw the most powerful Qualcomm chip in it, they could have done that, but that's not what they wanted to do because they knew what they wanted their software to do. And here's another good quote. We know exactly what we're building for, and if that means we're not going to win on benchmarks or not look as great on benchmarks, we're perfectly comfortable with that because the end result speaks for itself. And as a Pixel 7 owner, which it's not my main device right now, but as a Pixel 7 owner, I will say that I am extremely satisfied with what the phone does. I know I am not using it to its full capacity or capabilities, but for having it now for maybe 3 weeks, I'd say, yeah, I am 100% satisfied with it. Well, I'll say I'm 99% satisfied with the phone. If it were a little smaller, then I'd say I'd be 100%. Well, if it were a little smaller and had a headphone jack, I'd say I'd be 100% satisfied with the phone. But in terms of the actual performance of the device, zero complaints. And I'd say this is something else that's important to recognize, and I believe this is the Android Authority, saying, in fact, our own Tensor G2 testing shows that the Pixel 7 chipset lagged behind rivals when it came to peak results, but actually beat some Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones in sustained testing. And sustained performance is a must for tasks like gaming and photography. So yeah, that is perfect. And in fact, I'm glad that it says it because, wow, I think in my last video, I did an unboxing of a in my last video, I did an unboxing of the Sony Xperia 5 Mark IV, and I believe, yes, that has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 in it. And I wanted to record some video. I wanted to see how it would work when I'm recording video for YouTube or just for my own curiosity's sake, and it started to overheat. And that was extremely disappointing because I was not recording in 4K. It was just 1080p. And I don't know all the other settings because I'm not super good with cameras at the moment. But yeah, like I have been recording with my Pixel 7 as well, and I have yet to see the phone overheat. And that's an extremely good thing. I mean, I don't know the longest straight through video that I recorded using the Pixel 7, but it was definitely longer than, I don't know, the 6 or 7 minutes that the Sony Xperia was recording before it let me know that it was overheating. So for individuals who, yes, are gamers or who plan on taking a lot of photos or recording videos, having a chip like this is extremely beneficial to you. And if you stuck around to the end, you might have gotten bored while listening to it. You might not. I don't know. But I think it's important. It's interesting stuff. I think it's very easy to just accept whatever it is that the companies give us. It's easy for us to expect something new and more powerful every year. Everything that comes out this year has to be better than last year. And one metric that we commonly use are those synthetic benchmarks. And it's clear that yes, you can put this year's phone against last year's phone. And if you get higher numbers this year, then you're going to say that this product is effectively better than last year's product. Or if you take company A, in this case Google, and put it next to company B, let's say Qualcomm, and test their two chips from this particular year, if you get better numbers with Qualcomm's chip, you're going to say, oh, or I'll say if you get higher numbers with Qualcomm's chip, you're going to say, oh, that's a better chip. And what Google wants to say is, no, just because they're higher doesn't necessarily mean it's better, doesn't necessarily mean that the user experience is going to be better. So all in all, if you made it this far, great. If you happen to own a Pixel 7 or a Pixel 6, what are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Are you able to adequately do whatever it is that you need to do with your smartphone? I know I mentioned it in my little voiceover section, but one phone I was and am extremely excited to use is my Sony Xperia 5 Mark IV. But I'll tell you, within 5 to 6 minutes of me recording just full HD, not 4K, I think it can record in 4K, I got the overheating warning. So it's, all right, we put this powerful chip in this phone and we have these very nice cameras in this phone or on this phone, but it looks like it's not adequately cooled to give you the full benefit of such power. So all in all, I think the Pixel 7 is a pretty good device. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but I'm actually recording using it right here. So you're seeing the front-facing camera in a dimly lit room. I know I could have turned the lights on to make it a little bit brighter, but of course you're also hearing the audio. So all in all, I think it's a pretty good product. I think I said it earlier too that yeah, if the phone were a little smaller and had a headphone jack, it probably would still be my main device. But in terms of an overall software experience, I'm extremely satisfied with it. And if you have one, please let me know what your thoughts and opinions are on it.